Today's passage is Psalm 35 verses 1 through 16. Let's read together. Contend, Lord, with those who contend with me. Fight against those who fight against me. Take up shield and armor. Arise and come to my aid. Brandish spear and javelin against those who pursue me. Say to me, I am your salvation. May those who seek my life be disgraced and put to shame. May those who plot my ruin be turned back in dismay. May they be like chaff before the wind, with the angel of the Lord driving them away. May their path be dark and slippery, with the angel of the Lord pursuing them. Since they hid their net for me without cause, and without cause dug a pit for me, may ruin overtake them by surprise. May the net they hid entangle them, may they fall into the pit, to their ruin. Then my soul will rejoice in the Lord and delight in his salvation. My whole being will exclaim, Who is like you, Lord? You rescue the poor from those too strong for them, the poor and needy from those who rob them. Ruthless witnesses come forward. They question me on things I know nothing about. They repay me evil for good and leave me like one bereaved. Yet when they were ill, I put on sackcloth and humbled myself with fasting. When my prayers returned to me unanswered, I went about mourning as though for my friend or brother. I bowed my head in grief as though weeping for my mother. But when I stumbled, they gathered in glee. Assailants gathered against me without my knowledge. They slandered me without ceasing. Like the ungodly they maliciously mocked. They gnashed their teeth at me. Amen. Today's message is titled, Who is like you, Lord? When we look at what David asks of God starting in verse 1, we see that he begins with words that are very close to a curse. He says, Contend, Lord, with those who contend with me. Fight against those who fight against me. He is speaking about his opponents, those with whom he is not on good terms. But before he describes their situation, he says to God, God, please do this. Have you ever tattled on someone? I want you to think if you have ever run to someone to tell on a person you didn't like. Usually when you go to tell on someone, you first explain, they did this and that. And then the next thing you say is, so please punish them because they did this and that. But in what kind of situation would you first say, as David does in Psalm 35, please do this to so-and-so? It's when you feel truly wronged, or when you've had a fight with someone and your feelings are deeply hurt. When you go to someone and blurt out, I don't know why that person is like that, and then follow it with, I just want to. It likely means your emotions are running very high. That is the case in today's psalm. In verse 2 he says, Take up shield and armor, arise and come to my aid. And in verse 3, Brandish spear and javelin against those who pursue me. Say to me, I am your salvation. And in verse 4, May those who seek my life be disgraced and put to shame. May those who plot my ruin be turned back in dismay. He is saying to God, Please God, punish that person who is making my life difficult. And he details one by one how he wants them to be punished. And then, the reason why God should punish that person comes afterward. He says, God, look at how I treated them, but now this is what they are doing to me. In verse 12 he says, They repay me evil for good, and leave me like one bereaved. And again in verse 13, Yet when they were ill, I put on sackcloth and humbled myself with fasting, when my prayers returned to me unanswered. What does this mean? It means that when they were sick, he also grieved and once prayed to God to heal them, but now, these people are turning that same distress back on him. He did all these things for them, but what he got in return was this betrayal. When we think about this, we can imagine, wow, he must have been really angry. And this situation, where a person David cared for and wanted to keep close betrayed him, must have made David truly furious. In Dante's, Do you remember what sin is committed by those in the very bottom circle of hell? It is betrayal. The book says that betrayal, acting one way to someone's face and then turning on them behind their back, is what lands you at the very bottom of hell. Imagine how hurt, how wronged, and how offended David must have felt in such a situation to begin his prayer by pleading, God, please do this. And when we look at what he says, it truly seems that David is extremely angry with God to be speaking this way. In verse 8, he says, May ruin overtake them by surprise. May the net they hid entangle them. May they fall into the pit to their ruin. In a word, what is he saying to God? He's saying, please, finish them. Have you ever experienced such difficulties in your life? Have you ever been betrayed by someone? Are you perhaps keeping someone close who pretends to be nice to your face but badmouths you to others behind your back? Someone who acts friendly, but then goes to others and says, "Hey, I don't know what's wrong with that person. You should do this and that to them." Even if we can't show it to their face, I believe some of us have experienced what that feels like on the inside. But there is one thing that David is telling us in today's psalm. It is this: even in the midst of directly confronting that person, David is not telling God what will do to them. He is in a situation where someone has started a fight and betrayed him, forcing him to contend with them, but his plea is, "God, I need to do it." He is not asking another person for help. He is saying, "God, please, you do it." As I read this passage, I am reminded of the book of Romans. It speaks of placing burning coals on your enemy's head, but that is not something I do. It is something God does. God says this in His Word. Jesus also said, "Love your enemies." God judging and bringing harm to someone is not my job. It is God's job. Our job is not to go behind someone's back and ask for another person's help, saying, "Please punish that person." Our job is to speak to God alone through prayer. If someone attacks me, of course, I must defend myself. I must block it. But while blocking it is something we can do, and while we should certainly defend ourselves if someone slanders us by saying, "That's not me, that's not true," what comes next is to be entrusted to God. Making judgments, judging someone, and slandering someone in front of others is not what a Christian should do. It is absolutely not pleasing to God for a person of faith to take that story and spread it elsewhere. If I am upset with someone or my feelings are hurt by them, it is a matter to be discussed with that person directly. However, there are times when that person cannot handle it. The way an adult speaks to another adult is different from how an adult speaks to a child. If I need to have a conversation with the person before me, but it seems like a conversation between an adult and a child that will go nowhere, then I must be able to wait. Just as an adult speaks to a child so they can understand, I should do the same. If the person before me is upset, and I am also upset, the best thing I can do, if possible, is to stop. But if I can, it is the mark of someone who has a deeper faith and has encountered God more to speak in a way that the other person will not be offended and can understand. This is the character God desires from us. But when we act just like the people of the world, not only slandering that person but also going around spreading gossip about them, God is absolutely not pleased. Instead, God says, "Do you have something to slander? Are you hurt? Come and talk to me." The only one to whom we can honestly pour out everything is God. Sometimes when I talk about another person, there are moments when it feels refreshing. In the Bible, in Proverbs, there is a verse about being like the refreshment of cold water in the time of harvest. The refreshment of cold water can feel refreshing to my heart when I'm slandering someone else. My lips feel cool, my throat feels cool, and for a moment, it feels like a weight has been lifted from my chest. A few of you are smiling. You know what I mean, right? I'm sure you've all experienced it. But what happens when you turn away? After you've said everything, if you're truly a person of faith, your heart will be pricked. You'll feel a pang of guilt thinking, "Should I be doing this?" I've heard this from our senior deaconesses and some of our older male deacons. They say, "There are no secrets in the world. There are no secrets in the church. I'm sure I only told this one person, but I have no idea how that other person found out." What does this mean? It means that even if I trust someone and slander another person in front of them, it eventually makes its way around and gets back to that person. "Hey, so-and-so was saying this about you." That's why even worldly people, after slandering someone, worry afterward, thinking, "What if they tell on me?" Or, "What if what I said gets back to that person?" How much more so for a person of faith? When God sees and hears everything, can we speak so easily about others? In the end, it all comes back around. Think about it right here. No matter how much younger someone is than me, or how much I think I can treat them casually, would you be okay if that person heard word for word the slander you spoke about them? Only God keeps our secrets. Only God hears our prayers. And as David says here today, God also repays. God repays every single person for what they have done. That is why David was ultimately the king whom God loved and favored most. And among the kings of Judah and all of Israel, David was a stable king who was able to pass on the throne to his son in the most perfect and secure way. I want us to remember this fact. If you want your son, your daughter to inherit the precious grace you received from God in the most stable and blessed way, I hope you will remember the structure, the content, found in David's psalm today. David was treated most harshly and betrayed by the person he was closest to, the person he cherished most. Even toward the one who betrayed him, David first cried out to God. He did contend with them, but he prayed to, and did not spread the matter to anyone else. Even when we encounter someone in our lives who makes us suffer and causes us pain, may we remember the example God has shown us in His Word. We will cry out to God and pray for Him to repay, but may our lips never speak slander or resentment against anyone. I bless all of you gathered here today to be people who offer only prayer to God.